Hey, I'm Jay. My room is a mess. My life is a mess. Let's do this. Today we're talking about He Who Drowned the World. No, this is not a copy of He Who Drowned the World. This is a copy of She Who Became the Sun. That's my cat screaming in the background. He's going to do that. He wants food. He's not getting food. Instead, we're doing this video not on this book, on the sequel. But I don't have a copy of the sequel yet because I like the British covers. They're really pretty. And I haven't exactly had a chance to get to England between when the second book came out and now. So, I'm just going to be holding this up for a prop, but I want to talk to you about the incredible gender exploration in He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. To start off with Shelley Parker Chan is a queer author, and their queerness is very evident throughout the story. He Who Drowned the World, She Who Became the Sun, The Radiant Emperor duology, which just finished this August, is this historical fiction set in, I believe, the 1300s China. Historical fantasy, but very light on the supernatural. There's just a little bit of supernatural in there. It melds really well into the world and the more realistic parts of the world building. And it is handled beautifully, but even though it's not a whole lot of magic and flash, if you are into, like, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, anything like that, you need to read this. You will love this. It's got a lot of the same sort of, like, military fantasy elements and the intricate strategy details and the politicking and all of that, which I showed up for in those. But on the other hand, if you're also like a Don May reader and you like those sorts of stories, you'll get fed really well in these two, I'm gonna tell you. So as someone who's into both, this actually, She Became the Sun, the first book, actually cracked my top 5 books I've read in my entire life list. And I'm going to tell you, the last time any new book managed to make it into that list, I was about, God, that would have been what, 2009? Yeah. So, what is it specifically I wanted to talk about, which is gender and how the ending of He Who Drowned the World reflects on the commentary that Shelley Parker Chan is trying to make on gender and understandings of gender and acceptance of gender nonconformity and transness. And that means I have to spoil the whole book. So I'm going to, in future, do a nice, less spoilery review, and I will link it somewhere in the places where you link things. So go find that. Go find a couple copies of the books. Read it. This is in order. You will not regret it. Read these fucking books. Then come back and we'll have the rest of this conversation. I will be commencing spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, I'm gonna assume you're gone. So let's talk about that ending. Oh Young. So, sobbing aside, when I first read Oh Young's death, yeah, when I said there was gonna be spoilers, if you're not gone, get. Okay, when I first read Oh Young's death, I was very much like, what the actual hell? This was not narratively satisfying. It just freaking hurt. Yeah, the guy is not a amazing human being, but you still get attached to him. You're still really emotionally invested in his journey. It's incredibly tragic. So then to have every single thing he worked for blow up in his face, to die in that moment, was just horrific. So I was kind of upset, like, not just like crying over the character, but also upset with the author for that choice when I read it. But when I got to the end of the book, I understood why it is that Shelley Parker Chan made that choice. And it's the same reason that Madame Chung died the way she did, despite being such a tragic character. And that is what Shelley Parker Chan was trying to do, was push beyond just characters who are marginalized in some way to an acceptance of that marginalization, and to only raise up characters who are able to accept their marginalization and stand in solidarity, rather than characters who then turned around and perpetuated patriarchy and the same systems of oppression that were holding them down. So, for example, of the characters at the end who are vying for the throne and the khanship, you've got obviously bad characters like Chen Wulian and the current Great Khan, like characters who obviously were not going to have a good time. But then you've got characters like Oh Young, like Wang Baosheng, like Madame Chung, who are all characters who we have seen are oppressed, are marginalized by forms of misogyny within the system. Young, despite being everything that Mongol masculinity asks for, a warrior, ruthless, skilled with a sword, valuing those same masculine values, is constantly being demeaned due to his physicality. I saw a conversation online with Kelly Parker Chan at one point where someone referred to Young as a trans cis man, and the author saying that, yeah, that's actually a really good way to describe it, and I think that's a really good lens to look at it, in that he, even though he is actually cis male, due to his status as a eunuch, due to what that has meant for his physical development, his size and build, the effeminacy within that, he is treated as not cis male and has to work in the system very much in a way that a trans masculine person would, and is constantly fighting that. But rather than giving him a solidarity with other people in that same journey, he is so repulsed by the idea of comparison to femininity, to womanhood, that has led him to a hatred of women as well as his self-loathing, and we see that very much expressed during his final rejection of Zhu, when he throws everything back at them and then storms off. And this refusal to ally himself to that change, the fact that he's seeking the khanship only to take his own personal revenge without making any changes to the system that has wronged him, is why he loses, and loses so horribly. Then you get Madame Chung, who, very much the same case. We see how horrifically the misogynistic system has treated her. She is a cis woman, but she's the epitome of what the system does to women, because despite the fact that she is so smart and so cunning and so capable and so powerful, in the end, she is, we see her being assaulted multiple times by her husband. We see all the horrible things she goes through. We see that even with General Chung, who it becomes clear later on that she really did love despite her own denial, that she was not even able... Sorry, my medication alarm went off. Where was I? Oh yeah, she's not able to process that love she feels for General Chung because she has been so scarred and traumatized, essentially, by years of assault, by years of having to use her body as a weapon. And she has all of this trauma and all of her resentment against the system, but she's triumphing despite it. And then once she becomes empress, she's lost more power than she's gained, because even as the highest power of the land, we see how the emperor can reduce her to basically nothing, to this petty court game, and has taken her army. And Zhu sees this, and Zhu empathizes with her and her power and her powerlessness, and tries to offer her not just an olive branch, but a path to a true victory and solidarity as people who have both been, as AFAB people who have both been oppressed by these patriarchal systems. And she can't do it. She can't do it. Madame Chung is so entrenched in cis normativity. She's a TERF, basically. She's a TERF. She, to shorthand it, she is someone who, despite fighting against her own marginalization, despite seeing her own gender oppression, she cannot extend that to someone like Zhu, who is not gender normative, and that absolute rejection of a victory alongside a non-gender conforming person is what literally leads to her death, falling when she lashes out. And so finally we get to Wang Baoxiang, and in a way he is the most interesting one, because he doesn't meet the most obvious horrible ending, because he lives. He gets a decent ending, but that's kind of the point, because Wang Baoxiang, he's always had this effeminate masculinity. He is cis male. He at least believes himself to be straight, and so he's a cishet guy, but because he has never presented gender in a way that cishet men are supposed to present gender, because he doesn't value the things that patriarchy and toxic masculinity say he's supposed to value. He has always been treated as though queer, treated as though on the outside, and his conflict with this and his conflict with his father has put him in this place of rebelling against the whole world, of trying to get his brother killed, of doing everything to confirm people's worst views of him, and then take the concept purely as revenge against the world because of his bitterness, because of his anger. And in the end, he's given a chance to change, just like Oh-young was given a chance, just like Madame Chung was given a chance. But unlike Oh-young and Madame Chung, he actually takes that chance, and that's what makes him different, and that's why he gets to live, is because when Zhu and Ma offer him this moment to accept himself and let go of this need to just destroy everything, he takes it, and he is able to finally come to terms with himself and with the fact that he is not a part of the system, that he doesn't fit into this system, and accept that in a way that the others aren't able to do, and that's why he gets to live. But he also doesn't get to rule because he doesn't want to change the system, because Madame Chung didn't do what she did because she wanted to change the system she was a part of and make it better. Oh-young did what he did for very personal revenge. He didn't give a damn what happened to anyone else, or that other people would end up having the same exact situation as him and going through the same exact thing, because the system would remain unchanged. And Wang Baoxiang wanted to show everyone, he wanted to make the concept a laughing stock, but he didn't want to change anything for the better. He didn't want to change the trends that had harmed him. None of them wanted to make fundamental difference. Zhu did, and that was Ma. That was why Ma supported Zhu. That was why she killed for Zhu. That was why she was willing to do everything at the end that she did for Zhu, which was her point, which is that Zhu wasn't just trying to become the Khan. That wasn't the end goal. That was the start of the longer goal, which was to change things, to make a difference, to make a world where someone like Zhu would be able to live, someone like Ma would be able to live, where they'd be able to have choices, where they would be able to exist, where non-cisgendered, non-heterosexual people, where women would be able to exist. And because Zhu wanted to expand that dream beyond herself to people under her rule, she got to have this victory. And then on the other hand, there's one more character I want to touch on, and that's Lady Qi, who I think is very interesting, because she's set up as just, petty lady, courtesan, consort, doing the same things that you expect in all of, political stories and harem dramas and whatever. But the story goes farther with her character to show how everything she did was inherently about protecting her son, that she didn't play the political games and use her son as a pawn, but rather she only played the political games because that was the only way to protect her child. And then after his death, she accepts Zhu, and she decides to help Zhu obtain her revenge, and she doesn't question the fact that Zhu is AFAB. She just is willing to put that aside and work with her and show that level of allyship that Madame Chung isn't, and that is why Lady Qi gets that victory moment and Madame Chung ends up dead. And so we have this story where most of the key contenders for the throne at that point, other than Cheng Youlian, most of the key contenders by pretty early in book 2, because Bryce Bucket Chung, let's be real, we always knew he wasn't a real contender. Most of them are in some way disenfranchised by patriarchy. Even the third prince, even Madame Qi's son, is disenfranchised in some way. They are all disenfranchised by patriarchy. They are all being oppressed by the system. And Zhu is the only character among them who not only sees this oppression, understands the system, but wants to actually change it. Who doesn't want the throne just to say, I got the throne, look at me. Not just for personal, I'm on the throne now, but rather to go farther and to make these changes. And I think that's what a lot of the message within the text that Shelley Parker Chan is trying to express is that it's not just enough to have someone of a marginalized identity in a position of power or in a position of authority or finally get to the top, but rather that person has to be willing to then show allyship to other members of their marginalized identity, of other members of marginalized identity, to make those changes, who then do things to make it so that other people can rise in that same way. That getting someone into those positions isn't the end goal, it's the start goal, and that's what it takes to change a world, really, rather than drown it. And I'm floored. I'm floored by how Shelley Parker Chan did that. I'm floored by how those themes carried through so well and so amazingly, so articulately through the text and through these stories without ever feeling heavy-handed, without feeling like you're being hit over the head, and about just the way that trans liberation interconnects with misogyny, with toxic masculinity, with sexism, with the liberation of women, with the liberation of men. It's so interconnected, and they do such a beautiful job of showing that interconnectivity within this world of fantasy and battles and politics. And to me, this is what peak fiction looks like. This is what peak fantasy looks like, where it has these strong themes and has something to say about the world, but does it without dragging down the story, that manages to merge both in such a beautiful way. And that is why, I mean, I was going to say that's why you should read the book, but also, if you haven't read the book, what the hell are you doing here? Seriously. Seriously. You just spoiled everything for yourself. Look at you. Good job. Good job. Don't do that. If you enjoyed She Who Became the Sun, He Who Drowned the World, my alternate recommendation for you would be The God King Chronicles by Mike Brooks, who tackles a lot of similar themes about gender, sexuality, marginalization, etc. Within his epic fantasy trilogy, which is very much like this meet The Lord of the Rings. So, if that feels like it's your vibe, you should definitely go read that. I'm gonna go feed my hungry cat. Thanks for watching.